Alright. This is my first edition of doing this. I'm not entirely sure how to start. This was week 1 of Redcord Draft. I am the owner of this league, for those not aware. I have decided to commit to doing a review of all the battles every single week. I started just doing this myself. I might include more people in the future. But the gist of this is I'm going to try and go through every battle and analyze it to the best of my ability. A couple things, we'll probably need the Redcord draft doc. Okay, that's a different doc I made. We'll probably need this so we can look at the teams, if I have suggested edits or otherwise. Yeah, and then we can also look at schedules and such. Let me make sure my recording is still good. All right, that's wonderful. So I'm going to look at these in order played. So I'm going to start with Litfam versus Monum, which was the first battle played, and then I'm going to end with Radacious versus Cable, the last battle played. Now, Litfam versus Monum, I have a lot of insight on this one because I helped Monum a lot with his team. So there's a lot going on here. First of all, Monum has a lot of trouble versus Terra Thundo T. His electric switch-ins are really Amoonguss and Gastrodon. Thundurus gets access to Grassland, so Gastrodon kind of gets packed up, and it's more than likely going to be Terra Fly, Terra Blast, which destroys Amoonguss. So, because of that, Monum has a lot of trouble switching into that. Outside of that, there's not any glaring holes. It's just that Thundurus T is such a big issue. For Monum, I predicted Scarf Meowscarada, and I'll say now Litfam just ended up being Sucker Punch, so that didn't really matter. But another one is obviously the Black Kyurem is scary, but we had outs to it. It wasn't like it just swept right away, especially since it doesn't have D-Dance. So it wasn't that big of a problem. The plan for Monum was because we can't play the defensive game. Thundo T is eventually just going to win. Alakazam gets hardwalled by Slowking, Galar, and Skarm, and Urshifu gets hardwalled by Togekiss. So there wasn't really an offensive way in, so we came up with Meteor Beam Celesteela, my probably single favorite set in the game, Meteor Beam Celesteela. The plan being, set up in front of either Skarmory or Togekiss. And because it's Terra Electric Celesteela, T-Wave from either, I don't know if Storm gets T-Wave, I don't fully remember, but T-Wave from Togekiss specifically, which is just about the only thing it can do to stop it, doesn't do anything. The one thing I forgot is that Skarmory gets Whirlwind, but without further ado, let's get into the battle. Litfam leads this. It's pretty clear that he's just going to try and do something like Chilly Reception, but it was also a pretty good lead into the rest of the team. It stops the very obvious lead Alakazam, it does good into Amoonguss, it does good into these two, it does okay into Celesteela, and if Urshifu gets led, you just go straight to Togekiss and you're fine. But Celesteela lead is a little rough. Monum in his offensive Celesteela needs to switch, which gives Litfam information, because I think from his perspective, a lot of Celesteela that are defensive are probably just staying in and clicking Leech Seed or trying to get damage off. So he goes Amoonguss, which was I don't know if that was our planned answer for this, but it's probably his best answer. Another thing is, the only other thing we had for Thundurus was Mirror Coat Gastrodon. It was Rindo Berry, Mirror Coat Gastrodon. The reason for that, if Thundurus brought Nasty Plot, we would always live a Grass Knot from full and be able to Mirror Coat and kill. If it didn't, then we'd eat the Rindo Berry on the first one, recover back up, and then Mirror Coat on the second one, because then it's doing enough that Mirror Coat can kill. The plan was never to Mirror Coat while we had a Rindo and Thundurus wasn't set up, but we'll talk about that anyways. He makes a very obvious Chilly Reception play, and he's going straight to Thundurus Therian. Pretty clear. He actually just stays in, gets the Rocky Helmet chip off on the U-turn. That was kind of brave, because I think Terrafly Blast is very obvious, but he wanted to rip a Spore. This reveals Safety Goggles. I predicted Goggles on Skarm, and less likely Slowking, but Slowking's just a pretty obvious. Goggles Slowking is a pretty obvious bring into this team. This Alakazam is the rare, Retrace the Regenerator, by the way, which is really cool. It's the rare knockoff set. The reason being, The switch-ins to Alakazam are going to be these two mons, which are also the two most likely mons to be holding safety goggles, and no other mon really wants to be taking a knockoff. Kyurem likes its item, whether it's boots, loaded dice, or something else. Togekiss wants its boots. Slowk, one of these two is going to hold the goggles, and this is going to want whatever it is. Like, knocking the Thundurus is really key for the team. But anyways, knocking that is pretty good. We don't get poisoned on either Sludge Bomb, which is really lucky. And then it's just straight into Celesteela. He chilies again, and it's Discarnery, interestingly enough. With the Snow gone, he tries to set up and sweep here. Which I don't think is a bad play, until we remember that it gets Whirlwind. I completely forgot about this in prep. I should have considered it. This is kind of on me. But anyways, he goes to Comfey and clicks a free Defog. I mean, it could have Iron Head, but considering it's revealed 3 defensive moves, it's most likely last Brave Bird, so staying in Defogging is pretty good. It just puts the rocks right back up, though. It has no reason not to. He's just going to go Celesteela and Flame. And then Flash Cannon. At this point, without the Meteor Beam, Monum is kind of dead in the long run. Like, this can kind of just come in now. He's going to Terra Electric on this, as it U-turns. And then try to hit another Meteor Beam. Yeah, it's not going to do a lot, but the damage is racking up. And with the Autotomize, yeah, and this reveals that 1, it's Scarf, but 2, it's Grass Knot. Monum, for some reason, or Monum tries to, not for some reason, he tries to Meteor Beam again. This would have worked if he was faster. If this was not Scarf, he would have won the game. But I told Monum to look out for Specs and look out for Scarf, and if it was either of the two, not Specs or Scarf, he did just lose to Grass Knot there. But yeah, if this was anything else, like if this was a, I don't know, like if this was a non-choiced set, that Celesteela would have just won the game on the spot. I don't believe there was anything it could do besides get a Sucker Punch with the Meowscarada. So I guess it didn't exactly win on the spot, but goes to this. And this is kind of a screw up because we know it's Scarf, we know it's choiced into Grass Knot. Going Gastrodon raw on that means you have a plan. And he shows the Miracle, which again was the misplay. We wanted, the goal of sending the Gastrodon in was you take the first Grass Knot and you recover off of it, because a raw Grass Knot into a Rindoberry Gastrodon does not do enough for Gastrodon to kill Miracle. Actually, it might. No, it doesn't do enough. I ran the counts. So what you want to do is actually take the first Grass Knot, recover it off, and then take the second one, a Mirror Coat. And to lift him, it's just gonna look like, oh, Monum's being stupid, I'm just gonna abuse that fact. But instead, Monum just shows the Mirror Coat right away, and in Lifham's brain, he's never clicking Grass Knot again. But he does put the rocks up, which is good as it get Whirlwinds out. Amoonguss gets dragged in, which is good. This is a free Spore, which is why he goes Meowscarada, the only thing that doesn't get killed by Spore. He doubles to Comfey, perhaps reading that, which is a really good play on his part, but this just means he goes to Slowking, and this takes nothing from Draining Kiss, nothing at all. U-turn chip is good, and the healing from Draining Kiss isn't bad. Hard to Alakazam is a very aggressive play, but you do trace the Regenerator, so if it chilies here, then you get some health back, which is really nice. But Thundo T comes back in. This is, I mean, it's just Scarf Terra Blast incoming. Like, at least it should be. And that's exactly what happens. Down goes Amoonguss. He sends out Zam to trace Volt Absorb, but it doesn't matter at this point. He has to switch because it doesn't kill, and he knows Mirror Coat will. So, and if not, it will at this range. After Rocks, absolutely it will. It gets a Toxic on Comfey. He's going to knock off the Togekiss, which gets rid of its boots. I did spam knockoffers on this team. That's why I told Monum to run. He's going to knock off again. I don't know why. I don't know why we're defogging either at this point. It's better to keep the rocks up. And then we're clicking Charge Beam. But at this point, it's kind of over. There's just... Monum doesn't have enough turns to get through these walls. He does get a kill, though, which is good. Not a 6-0 is always a W. But then it just U-turns into the Kyurem. I believe this is just a standard loaded dice set, but he can't break the sub. Look at his 4 attacks. He can't break the sub anymore. which means he can just spam sub home claws. Yeah, and it's over. Sub roost, interestingly enough, but that deagling doesn't do enough. He puts a sub up. I really don't know why we're trying to stun so hard here, but I guess it doesn't really matter at this point. It's loaded dice, so this is dying, and then the Gastrodon should also get cleaned up at the end of the day. So yeah, a pretty dominant 5-0 from Litham. Monum, a couple things went wrong. A couple flowcharts went off. A couple things could have gone right. I think. I mean, I told him he could set up in front of either the Skarm or the Togekiss. I should have. It's kind of on me. Should have said only the Togekiss, right? Because I just completely forgot that this runs Whirlwind. Despite it being like one of its most common moves, it was definitely better just to try instead of in front of the Togekiss. I'm not sure how much it mattered between the Scarf Thundurus and the Sucker Punch Meowscarada. It was kind of cooked in the end, but this was a tough matchup for Monum. That Thundurus Therian, like, he genuinely just didn't have a switch in for it. Which makes it really difficult to play the game, especially when Litham has so many other threats. The Meowscarada does big hits, the Kyurem Black is always going to be there. Yeah, but overall, dominant 5-0 for Litham. The next game played was actually me. Yeah, this was me versus Excelsior. Now, I can go a lot into detail on this because this is my game. So, going into this, I'm looking at his team, and I'm going, okay, we need mons for Excadrill, Dracozolt, we need to worry about Gardevoir, and that's really the offensive threats that I'm scared about. Other than that, it's thinking about my offensive threats. I know the people building for Excelsior were convinced I wouldn't bring Heatran, because if we're being honest, it loses to both of these goobers, and it loses to T-Tar. And it loses to Clodsire, which are all like relatively expected brings. So is Jellicent. The reason I have to bring Heatran here, and it's not a I wanted to, it's I have to bring Heatran, is look at my Gardevoir switchings. There is only one, and it is Heatran. And I felt Gardevoir was a very obvious bring because it revenge killed Annihilate always. Even if I put a sub up, it's got Pixelate Hyper Voice. So I need it for that. At the same time, even if Gardevoir for some reason didn't come to the battle, Rotom Heat was always coming anyways. I needed to switch in for that, and Heatran was by far my best option. It's just a Super Spadef Pokemon. It has Flash Fire for the overheats, Flash Fire for the Will-O-Wisp as well. It was by far my best option for that. At the same time, it was a good option for Tangrowth. While not my primary focus, I was a little worried about breaking that thing, especially because my main offensive presence this game was through my Annihilate, and Tangrowth could take a hit or two off of that. But instead he didn't bring the Gardevoir, which I felt was significantly to his detriment. I feel the better play would have been drop Jellicent for Gardevoir Mega, because I'm not exactly sure what the Jellicent does in my team. It annihilates the Suicune, yes. I don't think you have problems with the Suicune when you have the Dracozolt. Other than that, I'm really not sure what it's doing. I mean, I think it's a switch into Weezing, but I think the better switch in is just Clodsire. On top of that, if you're using it as a special defense switch in for Heatran, I feel Clodsire, which he already brought, is just as good an option. I'm just not entirely sure. I think the better bring was Gardevoir Mega over Jellicent, but that doesn't mean the game was already lost, okay? Coming into this game, the first thing, and I tend to talk to myself out loud when I play these games, just to like make sure I remember the things I need to remember. The very first thing I said loading into this game was no Gardevoir. Why is there no Gardevoir? Because it meant Annihilate was in much better shape. And my Annihilate was very defensive. I had a very defensive Annihilate, and I could switch into Excadrill. Like, not even just come in on, or like, not like, I can take hits from Excadrill. No, I can switch in on Excadrill and be okay. The Dracozolt, not so much, but I can still take a hit from Dracozolt pretty easily. My main thing is, I mean, my Annihilate looks incredible into this team. My main thing is, don't get burned by Rotom Heat. That is it. That is the only thing I'm worried about. So, My lead is always Mence. I need to get the Terra off. I don't have switch-ins to Excadrill anyways. The reason for that, Excadrill gets Iron Head for Weezing Galar, which is my only my only thing that doesn't get obliterated by Earthquake. Okay, well you might think I have a Wo-Chien. No, Excadrill gets X-Scizor, which obliterates my Wo-Chien. So I have no choice but to Terra this. And I do it immediately because if I wait long, I won't be able to take hits from the Excadrill. I made a mistake in prep. I switched this to Terra Grass last second. I should have stayed ground. I just straight up forgot about, and we'll see it in a minute, but I just want my Earthquake chip. I might as well. Getting damage on this is always going to be super valuable. I reveal leftovers. Rotom Heat comes in. I Draco reading it, and I miss, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Yeah, I'm mixed Mence. I'm mixed defensive Mence, actually, which is why I show Protect. I'm trying to see if he wants to click Volt Switch, if he wants to click Willow. I want an idea of what this Rotom is. If he's offensive, defensive pivot, what's going on. I don't see leftovers, but that doesn't tell me much. He could still be a choice set. He could still be Boots. There's a lot of things he could still be. Considering it came in hard on my Mence, and considering the role in this matchup where it really wants to be able to switch moves, I'm not thinking it's choiced, but I do learn from this turn that it's not Specs. I don't know why it would be Scarf, because my team is on the slower end, so I'm already logging this away as Boots. I go to Mence, and he just low kicks. Low kick obliterates my Heatran, and it kills, or it doesn't kill Wo-Chien, but it 2-Ko's Wo-Chien on switch in. So that was a very good coverage move. It also hurts my Salamence, not badly, especially with the Intimidate. I'm not in the worst of shape. But then he shows the Fire Blast. See, this was what I talked about. I completely forgot that this could just be mixed Fire Blast, even though that's a more common set with Dracozolt. He makes another really good play and actually substitutes on my Protect while my Wish comes down. Yes, Mence gets Wish. This is a thing. I think one of Excelsior's plays, though, mispreps, I should say, is Life Orb Dracozolt. I think you would have gotten the same mileage out of Expert Belt. Because if we're being real, Bolt Beak doesn't need a power boost, and the other moves you're clicking are to be super effective. They're not to be, not just to hit things, but they're to be super effective, which I think is why you can get away with Expert Belt over Life Orb. Look how much damage this has taken already, okay? It did all that damage to itself. I've not hit this Dracozolt one time. This was all self-damage, and it's not taking Sand Chip either, because it's Sand Rush. So that sub and the Life Orb has already done half its health, and there's no way of recovering. There's no Wish Pass on this team. This doesn't get Roost or anything like that. It gets Rest, but it's not going to be Rest with no backup. It doesn't have room for Sleep Talk, and it's not running Chesto, so no, I do think Expert Belt over Life Orb was another play he could have made. I send the Wo-Chien out, mostly because I know whatever he clicks, it won't matter, really, and I know Wo-Chien takes a hit, and Sand Rush also ends, which is nice. Like, see, I take this Fire Blast pretty easily, and I just need the sub gone, because with no Sand, I don't really care about it anymore. And I don't need the Wo-Chien anymore, because if we're being honest, the Wo-Chien was really just my 6th man. If we're looking at his team, look who Wo-Chien's beating. Fire move, I'm beating the Jellicent, I guess, but I already have Annihilate to beat that. If I'm setting up for my Annihilate endgame, I don't need Wo-Chien is what I'm saying. I just don't really beat anything. I don't beat the main offensive presence, which is what I need it to be. This is a very easy Deoxys speed for me. It's actually the only thing on my team that was faster than Dracozolt at the time, or guaranteed faster. But I knew he would switch. If not, I believe slower Bolt Beak did not kill me, so Rocks was always going to be my play. Excelsior should have gone Jellicent right here. Jellicent has a monstrous Spadef stat and is a Ghost type, which eats my superpower, which I'm 100% clicking this turn, because killing this Tyranitar means Sand goes away eventually, which is really good for me. This does, however, bring in the Excadrill. But this is why I have a Salamence on my team. I give it Intimidate, and I resist his dual stab. He makes the X-Scizor, it's super effective on Deoxys, but also it hits Mence, which is really good. I let Mence go down here. I don't have a need for this to keep coming back in. I'm at 0 health, I'm going to take Rocks, I'm never going to get a Wish Pass off against this team. There's just no point to keeping Mence alive, so I just let it go down. Especially with Life Orb, him taking Life Orb damage is really good for me. that chip is really important. So I can take that just fine. And I know always that my Annihilate can take hits. So that's exactly what I do. I go to my Annihilate. And see, that Iron Head only does 32. Earthquake actually does more. I don't know if he was not running Earthquake, but he should have for the Heatran, but Earthquake does more. I get a Bulk Up off, and then this... I mean, I assume his intentions are staying in. I think that's Swords Dance. I assume he thought I was going to go for more Bulk Ups. If we're looking at his team, I have no reason to. He gave me base 100 power Rage Fist. I'm more looking at the very appetizing Drain Punch in front of me to get all my health back. I just don't have any reason to boost anymore. At this point, Rage Fist is... I don't know if it's killing Rotom, but it's killing Jellicent, it's killing Dracozold, and it's killing Clodsire. And no matter how much I boost, I'm probably gonna have to switch out when the Rotom comes in anyways, because it's max 298. Annihilate is max 306. I'm at no speed on Annihilate. There's a good chance this is faster with Willow. So I'm most likely gonna have to switch anyways, because this is my main offensive presence, and this getting burned is terrible for me. I do think it might have been a better play for me to just eat the Willow, because we're going to see the Rotom Heat come in now. I think it would have been a much better play for me to just stay in and either drain or Rage Fist, because if I get Willowed, at the end of the day, Jellicent is still getting destroyed by me. Dracozold outside of Sand is at 26%, so there's no hope there. And Clodsire it doesn't have any physical defense, so I'm not worried about it either. And if Clodsire can't get through me without hitting me, which gives me more Rage Fist. So I could have just won the game right here, probably, but I make the safer play and go to Heatran, which is still a free switch. He just defogs, which is it's suicidal play, because if I stay in this turn, I get Define, and I literally win on the spot. So that was a crazy play, but despite that, he gets the defog off. And this is a very easy opportunity to just put rocks right back up, because I know this isn't staying in, and I don't need damage on whatever comes in, and whatever comes in is going to be the Jellicent. Like, what am I going to do to it anyways? I might as well just put rocks right back up. That's what I'm actually going to do to it, is I'm going to Toxic, because I know it's going to stay in. He clicks Shadow Ball, I don't know what he's reading, but he's clearly reading me to switch, or he doesn't have Scald. Either way, I have a lot of Spadef. I don't really need it anymore, because at this point, I'm in an endgame where Annihilate can just win. So getting the Toxic off is a lot more important, because it means that Jellicent just dies eventually if Annihilate can't sweep. I'm basically setting myself up for, if Annihilate somehow gets crit and dies from something, I can still win without it. And then this turn is, I'm packing Corrosive Gas on this. I'm always clicking it this turn. I remove Jellicent's leftovers, I take Dracozold's power, I take whatever Clodsire has, which is probably Black Sludge, and if Rotom comes back in, I take its boots, which is exactly what happens, which is really good for me. This is just right back to Heatran. He has to defog. I maybe could have gone Annihilate, but then he just willows next turn. I don't know. I probably could have played my Annihilate a bit more aggressive this game, but I don't think there was a point in being more aggressive when I was in my opinion, a very winning position. His offensive threats were pretty much dead. It was just the Dracozold remaining. But yeah, this is an easy opportunity to put rocks right back up, because it means that Rotom is always in range of Annihilate almost no matter what. And then this is a free Annihilate. The only thing I'm worried about from the Clodsire is getting poisoned or getting toxic. I have leftovers to help offset that damage, but this game is not going to last long enough for either of those to factor in. So this is just an easy Annihilate switch. And then I don't even have to bulk up anymore. Everything's in range of 150 Rage Fist. And if not, this is unaware. T-Spikes is weird. I mean, dude, at this point, like, it's way too late for T-Spikes. I don't know if that was just an I give up type of play, but at this point, or if he just didn't want to, maybe he just didn't want to hit my Annihilate again and give me more Rage Fist, but at this point, everything dies to Rage Fist. I just click it. And that's exactly what happens. Dracozold comes in, hits me again. Bulbig actually does quite a bit, which makes sense because it's faster. But I don't care. I don't need HP on this anymore. I died to Rotom Overheat, but if I die to Rotom Overheat, I just go right back to Heatran. I almost did switch to Heatran, but I figured if he T-Bolts this turn instead of Overheats, he can 2-kill my Heatran, potentially. or get a para, which could matter. There's just some weird RNG stuff that could matter if I hard switch to Heatran, but it turns out I'm faster, so none of that matters. I also didn't really want to be greedy and make the switch for differential when it's only week 1. It doesn't exactly matter. So yeah, that's how I won that game. Overall, he just didn't have the mons for Annihilate. He didn't have the mons to deal with Annihilate, and it showed. It boosted up with Rage Fist, and it won the game. Plain and simple. I just had enough defense that I could stop Excadrill and Dragozolt in the short term, which let Annihilate win in the long term. Again, I think not bringing Mega Gardevoir was a big misread. And I think predicting no Heatran was also a misread, because I feel Gardevoir was so much more important in this game than this team gives it credit. But anyways, that brings us to Lizard Logan versus Typical. Going into this game, if we look at Typical's team, and I helped Typical a little bit with this, and then more listened along when Logan was doing his prep. I might have jumped in for more general things, but if you look at Typical's team, and you look at Terra Ice Sandy Shocks, I want you to name me a switch-in. Go ahead. One mon that doesn't get blown up by it. Yeah, there isn't one. The best thing we came up with was max fit up Terra Grass Garganacl, which like takes like 49-ish from Terra Blast Ice. That was it. So that was the big problem going into this, was the Sandy Shocks. But also, we needed to figure out what is going to be the counter to Garganacl, because something's going to have to counter Garganacl. I was sure it was either going to be Archaludon, but later on the line, I was more convinced it would be Covert Cloak, Whirlpool, Perish Song, Politoed. Turns out their solution was Volt Switch, Slow Volt Switch Fortress into Encore Palafin. So let's see how this goes. Typical just leads the Garganacl straight up, mainly, I believe, to get his Terra off so he can switch into Shocks somewhat reliably, and this is where we start getting into a Sableye versus Garganacl. This Garganacl is Iron Defense Body Press. He doesn't have a reason to switch. He has not been named a reason to switch. He hard doubles to Sableye. What Logan should have done is clicked Volt Switch, even though he might have been slower. If not, he should have clicked Volt Switch and just encored it with a Palafin. But instead, Sableye gets Salt Cured, and then we get into this meta where these two are just like, there's nothing going on. Eventually he goes back to Fortress, because this Sableye can't touch the Garganacl, this Garganacl can't touch the Sableye, but eventually, because of Salt Cure, the Garganacl is going to win the war. But he shows Pain Splint, actually, which does help him a little bit win this war. Volt Switch comes off, and he goes actually to the Sandy Shocks. I think he was overestimating. I don't know what's going on, because I don't know why. I thought for a second he might be overestimating Terra Ice damage, but then he Volt Switched. Maybe he just wanted Chip and then he should go back to Sableye, waste a move on Garganacl. I don't really know. It's just Logan kind of floundering in front of the Garganacl, is what these first couple turns are. And Typical has no reason to do anything else but mash buttons. This takes another hit, this Pain Splits again. But at this point he can just kill it, and he's not really scared of a lot. But now he's in range of Sandy Shocks. Logan knows this, Typical knows this. He's just gonna go Prim because he's expecting Terra Ice, Terra Blast. He kind of has to. This is where I think Logan and Typical made, or not Typical, but I think Logan and his prep kind of made a mistake. This is Scarf Sandy Shocks. This should not have been Scarf. This thing, switching moves, can just kill him on every time it comes in versus Typical's team. But if it's locked into one, if Typical gets to play right once, now Logan's on the back foot. And Typical figured this out really early on. Back when he Volt Switched his Garganacl all the way back here, whatever, you saw it earlier. It Volt Switched his Garganacl earlier, and he calced it for Modest. And he's like, why the hell would this run into this team where it kind of needs to be Jolly to outspeed certain mons? Not into this team specifically, but into Typical's whole team. Mainly, I think it was the Mega Metacham was the biggest one. Sandy Shocks just barely outspeeds Mega Metacham with Jolly. Why is he not running Jolly into this team that could have a Mega Metacham, but he's running Monist instead? It must be because he's Choice Scarf. I think that was a misplay. I think it was better to be able to choose moves. I think, yes, you're slower than Zoroark, you're slower than Roaring Moon. So what? I think you have switches to both that are just fine. I really don't think you lose much from, and besides, I think the Roaring Moon is likely going to be Dragon Dance into this team anyways, because it didn't have a lot of options for it. And the Zoroark Hisui, I think you live a hit from Zoroark Hisui no matter what, and you kill after a hit. I just don't think Scarf is the correct play. But anyways, Terra Blast comes off. This is Assault Vest Prim. Or no, I'm sorry, it's Choice Specs Prim, because there's no switch-ins. This takes 51. And it doesn't show leftovers. I believe it's probably Damp Rock. That's what I would assume in this situation. I forget how this battle played out, but besides, he has to sack it because there's no more switch-ins. The Fortress is dead. What else switches into Choice Specs Moonblast? Arcaludon, if it's AV, might take 3, maybe, probably just 2 though. And that's a very, that's like 40% type of 2. But anyways, he has to switch to this to block Electro Shot. And if it Dracos, this Nidoqueen isn't exactly important. And a Draco lets in Roaring Moon very easily. If he Dracos, then Roaring Moon comes in, clicks D-Dance, and probably just wins on the spot. If he clicks Flash Cannon, this takes the hit and is faster, and nothing wants to take an Earth Power either. Which is exactly what Typical starts clicking. He switches to Sandy Shocks, which does take the hit. And then doubles to Arcaludon, predicting, I'm assuming a switch, but Typical just stays in. I don't know if he was calced to live a Terra Ice Terra Blast, or if he just figured every time Shocks comes in, sacking him on is okay at this point. Because at this point, if Shocks clicks Terra Blast and it kills, he can just go Prim and kill one right back with Moonblast. I don't remember if he was calced to live. If he was, then he kills the Shocks afterwards. So it's kind of a win-win for Typical, just staying in there. Logan tries to make an aggressive read, and it doesn't pan out, unfortunately. He gets Palafin activated, but at this point, it's kind of rough. Yeah, I mean, it's just hard to break through this team. And as Rain ends, this Palafin loses a lot of its attack. It's not Covert Cloak. It does show the Encore finally, but it's a little too late. Now the Garganacl's back to full. Goes Nidoqueen on the Corviknight, predicting Electric move. He makes a really cool Earth Power. Judging from that damage, he definitely lives a Terra Blast. Typical just stays in, wanting to sack. Logan kind of has to switch there, because if he stays in and Earth Powers, Roaring Moon comes in and wins on the spot. But at this point, again, it's just a little too late. Logan has such a low sack lead that it's almost impossible for him to win. Typical got the entire VC with this one. I thought that was Roaring Moon coming in to click D-Dance and click Outrage, or just click Raw Outrage, because at this point Outrage wins. But surprise! That was actually Spec Zoroark right there. It didn't matter, both won. This just means he can't get Drain Punched. So if Palafin stayed into Drain Punch, he dies. He's gonna preserve it. This shows Thunder instead of T-Bolt. Typical stays in because, again, you don't want to get paired on Roaring Moon. The game's pretty much over, but you don't want to lose Mons at this point. You want to preserve it. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is if that Palafin is like Bulk Up or something, there's a chance that the Roaring Moon can get full parried enough, or be as much of a disadvantage as possible for the Palafin to win. Typical is just trying to make sure he doesn't lose. Sacking this is the correct play, because sacking this means you go straight to Garganacl, you click Salt Cure, and you win the game instantly. But instead he misses twice, he just clicks Moonblast, and he always lives a hit from Palafin. So, and if not, he sacks, he goes Garganacl, and wins anyways. At least in his mind. Turns out this was Hydro Pump Ice Beam Palafin, specifically to beat Terra Grass Garganacl. It never got shown, unfortunately, so this is the result we get. Another 5-0 this week, this time from Typical. Logan just didn't stick to his game plan. He had Encore Palafin for the Garganacl and then didn't use it. The Garganacl sat on the field for literally the first 20 turns and basically wrenched the Fortress, took all of Sableye health, and because the Fortress was gone from the Garganacl, Prim gets free Moonblast into the entire team, which punched holes enough for Politoed to die. This limits Rain. And then and then I think also Scarf Shocks was a big misplay. I think it should have been able to switch moves. I don't know if that means you run a defensive berry. I don't know if that means you run Assault Vest. I don't know what that means for you. I just don't think Choice Scarf was the correct play. I think switching moves was way too valuable in this matchup when your 3 quote-unquote stab moves obliterate the entire team. But anyways, the next game played was Alaxel versus Ben. I rated Ben's team the worst, actually. Well, I don't know if I'll talk about that here, but the whole reasoning behind that is I think Ben's first 4 Pokemon are really good, and his supports don't work well together. I think Azumarill and Tentacruel on the same team makes no sense, and the other 2 do nothing. So, but let's get into it. He leads Keldeo, probably predicting lead Gliscor, which is a very common one. He goes Tentacruel, very obvious switch. This is all standard so far. He's going to get the Mega off and probably U-turn. He flip turns himself. He's actually fast flip turn, probably just because Scizor has no speed. But yeah, he's going to U-turn himself. This is all still pretty, not much going on. Enamorus comes in as Gliscor gets Toxic. I was going to say, if you're like Facade or something, you could probably just stay in here and hit this. But instead, he switches and this clicks Sub. This is really bad. This is really bad. This either has Earth Power or Mystical Fire. This can take hits, but only in shield mode. If it wants to break Sub, it's going to have to go to attack mode. If it wants to, which then means it gets hit a little too hard. If he wants to switch back to defense mode, he'll have to King Shield. Which means this can put another Sub back up. Additionally, this is something I want to check, but I think Ben made a small misplay. I don't believe Enamorus can be male, right? Yeah, Enamorus is always female. Also, if it's not running Contrary, it has to run Cute Charm, which only affects opposite gender. So Ben, if he wanted to be optimal, he should have made his entire team female. Just so he would never get Cute Charmed in case this is not Contrary. And guess what? It's not. He's running Calm Mind. Which means, again, no Contrary. But that doesn't proc through Sub as far as I'm aware, so it doesn't really matter for this, because again, if he King Shields, he actually Earth Powers on the King Shield. When that happens, Ben should have just stayed in and hit it again. I don't know why he swapped out here, but he did, which just lets us get a free Sub. Really, I mean, even in attack mode, I'm pretty sure this takes a hit from Enamorus. He should have just mashed Gyro Ball. There was not really a ton of reason to switch. Instead, this thing is special. It's not going to hit it. I mean, now you're giving him ideas because his Sub didn't break. He could just Calm Mind again, which is exactly what happens. This is AV to help with Keldeo and to help with Dragapult. But, I mean, it doesn't really matter when you sack all the HP. I'm not sure why Alaxel switched there. I think he was scared of taking an Aqua Jet, but he probably could have just stayed in. Either way, this U-turn means it can come right back out and put the Sub right back up. He Earth Powers Raw and it does about 46. And then Ben switches again. Again, there's just not... There's not a lot to do about Sub Enamorus, to be perfectly honest with you. There's not a lot he can do. If it was full defense Aegislash, maybe. I don't think it is, just judging by that Earth Power damage. But like, at this point, Alaxel has gotten so much mileage on Ben's team, and Ben has done nothing but get 30% on Mega Scizor, and whatever damage on this. But at this point, the damage on this doesn't matter. Alaxel's not switching anymore. He has no reason to. He Earth Powers once, he's going to Sub again, or he's going to Moonblast, because Moonblast does kill the Aegislash from that range, and kill the Latios on switch. Actually, I don't know if it does, but he probably calced it and saw that it did, or he figured he would probably switch. Either way, this game is pretty much over. Even if Alaxel manages to kill this Toxapex, he has to get a Miracle Sweep with Zarude, which I'd be very surprised to learn that Alaxel doesn't have something for this. Terra Fire, Terra Blast does kill. This is for the Scizor, very obviously, but that's a Scarf Keldeo. Or he's just faster. Either way, a couple Hydro Pumps later, and we're and the game's over. So, yeah. I think, I don't really know what you do about that one. The sub Enamorus is clearly a surprise. He clearly didn't know how to deal with it. Maybe there was something like Poison Jab Tentacruel that should have been considered. I'm not sure. It's a prep thing for sure, because that Aegis Slash was taking too much, even in shield mode. It might have been better. I don't think it was full Spadef. It might have been better off that way. I don't know. Clearly a lot went wrong there. I think mostly in prep, because Ben's play wasn't entirely bad, because it looked like he just straight up had no answers for the Enamorus. Well, I mean, I guess it was just go straight to Zarud and click Terrifier was the play, but he didn't do that. Yeah, another 5-0. This week is full of 5-0s. We got Sableye versus Nilly. I think this was probably the best game of the week so far. No, not so far. This was the best game of the week. This was, even though both misplayed a lot. So coming into this battle, yeah, so what do I know? This is defensive Volcarona to abuse Flame Body for Bubble Iron Dash from Melmetal. This Rillaboom is actually a really funny story, and this will come up later. Rillaboom, Sableye struggled in prep to find an item, and then because he named it 5 Big Booms, because he's only doing Brain Rot names, was like, oh, what if I do Loaded Dice Bullet Seed? And we're like, that's stupid, why wouldn't you just run Woodhammer? Until he calced it versus the Alomomola and found that Woodhammer meant he was taking half his health in recoil. So instead he put on Loaded Dice Bullet Seed so he could shred through the Mola and not take any damage for it. It also guaranteed kill, but Woodhammer, even with like max attack, didn't always, which is insane. But yeah, so the Loaded Dice Bullet Seed was for that specifically. Nilly in prep had a tough time dealing with Muck specifically. If you look at Nilly's team and you look at an AB Muck, there is no way to kill it. So that's the main things going into this game. Also, this is Choice Ban Zeraora, because there's no... If Claydol dies, everything dies to Plasma Fist. So, leading off, we got Volcarona versus Claydol. Obviously, Claydol, very obvious lead. He just clicks the Quiver Dance. This is a free flip turn for Nilly, or even a free liquidation if you're running it. But instead, she baton passes. She doesn't flip turn because of... I believe there was a reason. There was a really good reason. Because of Mummy Coffer-Grigus. Because Mummy Coffer-Grigus can steal the regenerator. So instead she brought Baton Pass. Brings up the Salazzle. This is clicking Toxic. For some reason, Sableye stays in, even though this is his best defensive check to Nilly's entire team. They basically just trade these. Trade the 2 poisons. Muck gets a sneak on Mola, but it doesn't get a poison touch. And then it just protects as it dies. That was, he basically just hard traded Salazzle from Muck. I think that was a bad trade. I think Muck was very valuable in this matchup. But it does let in a Choice Band Zeraora. Nilly says she misclicked this turn and just wanted to sack Salazzle, instead went this, which is really bad because knockoff, even with the Cold Berry, does half, which means another knockoff is killing. This means the Zeraora has free reign to click Plasma Fists. Nilly goes Shaman Sky and Earth Powers. That only does 43. Why did it only do 43? This is Choice Specs. Why did that only do 43? Nilly, when making this team, instead of scrolling the bar all the way to the right on Spatak, did it on defense. So this is 0 Spatak invested Spec Shaman Sky. Yep. Mola comes in. This is just a baton pass, always. Paralysis. Mola doesn't really give... Well, it cares a little bit when that happens, but otherwise it doesn't really care. 5 Big Booms comes in. Wish into Shaman Sky, because no matter what happens, Shaman Sky will take the Wish. This is a very easy Air Slash to deal with the Boom, because you don't want it to stay in. But then this is just free Zeraora, which is where you sack the Salazzle, obviously. Yeah, Terra Electric as well. Terra Electric banded Plasma Fists. But Nilly has Terra Dragon on Melmetal, and Melmetal has a lot of defense, so it's fine. Nilly gets the Rock Slide read this turn, which was really good, and kills the Volcarona in 1. This was needed. The game was lost otherwise. I'm going to be so for real. Like, there was no way back in. Nilly stays in this turn, calling no fairy move, and even if it does, it probably doesn't do that much. But the full parrot is unfortunate. Encore means it gets parried again, but Encore means it's stuck in Rock Slide, so Nilly will have to switch anyways, and this is where he gets the Landorus in. Mola doesn't have a lot of defenses, so this kind of sucks. Additionally, no flip turn damage means the Baton Pass gets no chip on the Landorus. Seed Flare doesn't kill because it's not invested. If it was invested, this dies, and Nilly just kind of wins at that point, to be honest with you. Everything dies to Melmetal. Yeah, everything loses to Melmetal after this dies. But instead, she's not invested, this dies, and then she has to stall turns with Prankster Toxic Thunderous, because you can't take a hit with Melmetal. He switches on the obvious Protect. Nilly protects anyways for more leftovers recovery, and to figure out what move it's choicing into, and then after seeing its electric, has to go to Melmetal, but it still takes a lot of damage. And this is AV Melm, so she's not getting any recovery. But she clicks Earthquake, which is crazy because this gets high horsepower, and this has grassy terrain. I think that was a misplay, but she just doesn't care, so whatever. I think this was in double Iron Bash range, but I couldn't tell you for sure. Either way, that's a Dead Zero Aura, which is really good for Nilly. At this point, it's a Tinkaton. Damage with Gigaton Hammer. That's the whole gimmick here. But Mola is a free switch. Encore doesn't work. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Sableye could Encore this and then go free Landorus. So that was the other play. Nilly wishes and then goes to Melmetal. Melmetal lives a Woodhammer. It lives a Grassy Glide. It lives literally everything. And if it lives, Melmetal Wish or Alomomola Wish comes down, and Melmetal wins on the spot. Something has to die this turn to Melmetal. Something has to get sacked to Melmetal unless full para. And the Landorus doesn't have enough turns to get through the team. Alomomola can protect it off. And because of that, the Melmetal would just win on the spot if the Wish comes down. But Sableye is Loaded Dice Bullet Seed. And that first one did 5%, meaning 5, which Loaded Dice guarantees 5 kills. All he needs to do is hit 1 extra. We literally counted this in BC. He got 5 big booms right there, and it won him the game. And then another 5 big. Well, he only needed 4, but another 5 big booms on Alomomola means Sableye cleans up the game. Insane game, by the way. Crazy misprep from Nilly, crazy misplays from both in the game. I think sacking Muck was suicidal, yeah, Double Dance Lando there was a lot that happened in this game. This is a very good to watch game. I don't know what you change. I think both people brought good prep. I think Sableye should not have sacked Muck like that. I think Nilly should have actually invested in special attack for Shaman Sky. Otherwise, it was a very good game overall. Icarus versus Sophie. I have a lot to say about this one. I'm just going to get right into it. I don't think there's much to say about both teams. I think Lele has to be choiced. Probably Scarf in this matchup. And I think I didn't prep with Sophie, but I think someone should have told her that. Lele just has to be choiced in a lot of matchups. But either way, getting into this, that's Terra Rock Ogerpon, and this is Terra... What is Terra on this team? I forget. I want to say it's Serp. Icarus. It's Terra Iron Crown, actually. Yeah, that makes sense. So, Sophie leads Ogerpon and puts the spikes up. This is good because she's probably expecting a switch because a grass move would really hurt this, and U-turn would also hurt it. But instead, Icarus just stays in and puts up rocks. This invites Sophie to put up more spikes. He goes hard Dracovish, predicting more spikes, assumed. I'm assuming he predicted the second spike and went hard Dracovish, which he would be correct. That was a good play. Except this is Sturdy. So Sophie has a choice between two things here. Put up a third spike or click what I hope she has, which is the grass coverage move, into the Dracovish to chip it down big. It's that or the third spike. Icarus has no removal, so I would probably greed for the third spike and then go straight to Empoleon or Rotom Mow. Yeah, I'd probably greed for the third spike and then go straight to Rotom Mow because nothing really wants to switch in on it. And it forces a switch at all, which means 25%, which is already making mileage. Sophie actually reveals Spiky Shield, which is... Alright, this is going to be my rant. Protect in singles is all but useless. There are only a couple of reasons to run Protect in singles. The first one is for mons that have self-procking items that need to work, mainly Gliscor and Ursaluna. They will run Protect to make sure that their Flame Orb and Toxic Orb, respectively, actually go off and they don't get hit by another status, which can be very detrimental to them. Or, worst case scenario, they get knocked off, meaning they don't get any status at all. That would be horrible for both of them. Other reasons to run Protect, for example, Nilly ran Protect in the last game we just watched because she had a lot of Toxic Stall on her team, and it was a Wish set, so she wanted to Protect on the second turn of Wish and basically use it as fake Recover. Sophie doesn't have any of that on her team. I don't know why we're running a Protect move. I just don't think there's a point. It gets Chip on Dracovish, which is fine, but you get a lot more mileage off of sturdy attacking moves. Because if you're paying attention, this Spiky Shield spikes, it's going to be third move Ivy Cudgel, and the last means either no U-turn or no grass coverage. Turns out, no grass coverage, assuming. Or we're assuming there's no grass coverage. If this was Woodhammer instead, this is a dead Dracovish. Just straight up. It's a dead Dracovish instead of if you ran Woodhammer over Spiky Shield. So I think running Spiky Shield is misplay. Icarus has to switch because if it's Spiky Shields again, then he dies, and he gets that correct. He technically doesn't have to switch because he's dead to hazards anyways, but he's basically just making the call out that he can preserve the sack and take a hit on Blood Moon, and he's valuing that over just letting this go to Spiky Shield. Because if we're being honest, his whole team is slower to this because this turns out to be Specs Lele. So preserving the sack and taking a hit on this, which it's going to take a hit anyways if he sacked Dracovish because it's slower, was a better idea. But he also revealed that this doesn't have Vacuum Wave. If he had Vacuum Wave, he could get this turn, but instead he just goes with Hyper Voice. This is all fine. It is a Life Orb, so this gets chipped heavily. Why are we going Empoleon? Genuinely, why are we going Empoleon? This is a very free Mega Gallade or Rotom Mow. Either one is good. Rotom Mow doesn't have switches. Genuinely. Nothing wants to take a Leaf Storm. Mega Gallade, a CC, hits everything on the team. Even Lele. Lele doesn't want to take hits, doesn't want to take a CC plus spikes. Why are we going Empoleon? Additionally, Empoleon is almost always defensive in singles. It's going to be slower than Ursaluna that has any speed. Guess what? This Ursaluna has speed, so this Empoleon dies instantly. So we have just given up an entire Mon for Life Orb damage. And then we make the correct play and go Mega Gallade. This is Drain Punch. I don't know why we're doing Drain Punch. This normally just runs CC, it gets Sacred Sword, I believe. It's CC or Sacred Sword. You don't really have much of a reason to Drain Punch. This thing is too frail to take hits anyways. For the most part, you're just better off going for raw damage. Lele comes in. Now, two things. Lele is always taking a hit from Mega Gallade, so that's smart. Two, it could be Scarf. Either way, you have to switch. It's probably going to click a Moonblast. Instead, it clicks Psychic, which does 76% from the Rotom. You should know from that damage that it's Specs, and go straight to Darkrai. Instead, Sophie stays in and sacks it. Which is, I don't like that at all because Volt Switch is really good now that the Blood Moon is dead. It was just straight up free. Back to the Mega Gallade, which again, this always takes a hit. Again, we should know this is Specs by now. This should be a free Darkrai into, I mean, it's a free Darkrai into clicking Focus Blast on the Tyranitar switch-in is what you should be doing, or doubling back. It's either go Darkrai and double back to Mega Gallade, or go Darkrai and Focus Blast. There is no other play. Instead, we're back to the Gallade. This always lives a hit from Gallade, and it's killing with Psychic. Now the Darkrai comes in because that's definitely dead because of Specs. This is a very easy Tyranitar switch. Even if Sophie gets to play right and Focus Blasts, Icarus just goes... oh wait, no, the Dracovish is dead to Spikes. Well, either way, even if Sophie gets to play right and Focus Blasts, which I don't even know if that kills, to be perfectly honest with you, but it will 2-hit KO. So if both kill, Icarus just goes... what I assume to be 80 Iron? Oh, it's Terra Iron Crown. What Terra is Iron Crown? Yeah, it's Terra Water. You just go Terra Water, Iron Crown, and then click buttons. And the game is pretty much over as long as you play it right. Instead, we're making the obvious play in Dark Pulsing, which does literally nothing. We're Nasty Plotting, which is just not good because you're dead to Stone Edge. And Iron Crown cannot, or Iron Moth cannot kill this. Even if he misses Stone Edge here, it loses another. So yeah. This was just badly played by Sophie, to be honest. We gave up the Rotom-Mow and the Empoleon for Spikes damage on Tapu Lele and Urs. And what we gave up the Rotom-Mow for Spikes damage on Tapu Lele. We gave up the Mega Gallade for 40% on Tapu Lele, which didn't end up mattering at all. We gave up the Empoleon for Life Orb damage on Ursaluna. It's just such a bad waste of resources, and having a better idea of what beats what would have helped Sophie a lot here. Like, a lot. But she did do some things right, getting the Dracovish dead to Spikes. You could have killed it with the right set. Should have ran that instead. It didn't happen. It is what it is. But that was good. I think with some more understanding of what Icarus's obvious plays were too would have been good. But overall, Icarus played it good. Sophie, I mean, it just gave up too much in too little time. Eldritch versus Mabel, this was also a very solid game. Here's what I'll say about Eldritch's team. I put this like right in B tier. Eldritch's team is good, but goddamn, if he just got rid of Armarouge for Torkoal, this is like one of the best teams we have. Either way, it's clear what Mabel's game plan is. It's Tapu Fini Sneasler. So all she needs to do is get chip on Dondozo, get chip on Great Tusk, chip on Raging Bolt, and you're good. We are leading Ogerpon. You have to switch, obviously, because this is, yeah. And this shows Bleak Wind over Hurricane or Air Slash, which makes sense. This has to switch because of potential Thunderclap. This is a very obvious electric move, but Eldritch actually subs instead, which is a very good play, because sub allows you to get a hit off on any one Pokemon. Mabel decides that this can just take the hit. It's only Dragon Pulse anyways, which does a lot, but it doesn't kill. But now she actually makes the switch to Tapu Fini, which is interesting. I'm assuming she has Moonblast. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I know you need chip on Raikou, or that's not a Raikou, that's a Raging Bolt. Getting chip on this is really good, and maybe she had a more offensive set where Moonblast could kill. I doubt that, because Raging Bolt takes a lot to kill it, but either way, I think the switch, because it's gonna either Dragon Pulse or switch, and if that's covering both, if this Fini is able to kill the Raging Bolt from that range, that's a fantastic play. Because the Croak switch-ins are Great Tusk, which loses to Fini. Instead, he actually goes to the Dondozo, which the Fini loves to see anyways, because Nature Madness means this is in range of the Dondozo. Eldritch makes a misplay, and he realizes it right away. He clicked Yawn and Misty Terrain. Oopsies. So this means Mabel can just stand and click it again, because it's chip on Dondozo, which is needed for Sneasler, and any switch-in gets half its HP gone, which is exactly what happens to the Goldengo. This reveals Light Screen, which is very interesting for this match, and puts it up right in front of the Goldengo. Yeah, that's a very interesting bring for this. Wellspring comes in predicting Water Move, but instead Mabel just switches out, not wanting to take more hits on Fini. At this point, you can't sack Fini. You need the terrain later for Sneasler, and I think she is potentially thinking of Light Screen later on. But anyways, this is a bad mishap, except this reveals that it's Scarf, which means free Gunk Shot into Ogerpon. There was no reason to think this was Scarf before, other than it led. I don't know, but if it's led, it could be rocks. Like, yeah, there was no reason to think that this was Scarf. So this was a very good hiding this away from Mabel, and it gets the jump on the Ogerpon. No poison, and I don't know if that was a roll to kill. I couldn't tell you. I don't know either set, but either way, the Ogerpon just barely hangs on, but it's dead if hazards go up. Mabel goes straight to her Tapu Fini. Draining Kiss on a Mon with a lot of HP, you can't really stay in. So he goes Armor Rouge, which always takes a Draining Kiss. Fini gets a little bit of health back, which is good for that, but now you got to deal with the Armor Rouge. He's also making the call out at this point because Mabel really did not click Water Leaves before. She didn't click it into the Goldengo when he switched. So I think he's also trying to make the call out that potentially this is last move Reflect, which might just be correct. I mean, there's not a lot of times a Mon runs Light Clay and doesn't run dual screens. So if he's just calling Reflect, that's a very good call. It goes straight for the Energy Ball, which probably wouldn't kill unless this is Specs. I don't believe this is Specs though. And this is Terra Dragon Trailblaze. Terra Dragon takes basically anything from Armor Rouge, and Trailblaze gives it speed no matter what switches in. The Dondozo is actually what switches in, but while it's super effective, it doesn't do a lot. You can crit. So this is just Knockoff. Knockoff is so good because it gets rid of this thing's leftovers. This stops all of its healing. But anyways, this is a switch to Fini. It stops the on spam. It takes an Ether from Dondozo, and now it shows the very interesting curse. But if you're Mabel, you're not scared of this. First of all, Rest won't work in Misty Terrain. Second of all, how does it have Rest when all three moves are status? It's last move attacking, probably Wave Crash, which is exactly what it shows, which it takes recoil for. And while Protect can stall out for a second, and help stall out Terrain, this is the other reason to run Protect. It's Protect, so Yawn can go up for free. And it also stalls Terrain for Sneasler. That is a good reason to run Protect. The only reason Sophie had to run Protect was Sand, which I don't think is very justifiable, and the only Sandmon was Strakovish that you had many switch-ins to. Either way, in comes Metagross. It gets tricked, which is very interesting. This means two things. One, this can't set up anymore. Two, this can't set up anymore if it's going, or it can't switch moves, which is really bad because this is a Mon that really wants to switch moves. But Mabel just stays in an Earthquake. It's super effective. Armor Rouge isn't the bulkiest thing in the world, and it hits basically everything. Ogerpon will die. Dondozo will die. None of these. Again, chip on Great Tusk means we're closer to a Sneasler victory. So, I mean, staying in an Earthquaking is perfectly reasonable. This gets a crit on the Psychic, which I believe mattered. I couldn't tell you for sure, though. Another Psychic on the Therian, but, I mean, she's just going to kill it. Back comes Fini, and in comes the Ogerpon. You have to switch Fear the Grass move, which is exactly what Eldritch clicks. If he doesn't click that, Fini could potentially put up another screen. It could potentially kill the Ogerpon. You lose a lot by not just clicking the obvious move. Back to Fini, and it's going to be... Is that a... Yeah, she reads Protect and puts up the light screen. Again, very good play. Goes to Delmies. Not wanting to take the chip on Fini. Crit is unfortunate, but with leftovers, it doesn't exactly matter that much. And with the spin this turn, this is going to get a lot. And now, we have a Delmies behind a light screen at +1. This Shadow Ball is going to hurt, but because of the light screen, it's always going to live. And this gets Poltergeist. This is a dead Goldengo. And that... any Mon dead means the more Mon's dead means the more Sneasler can come out. At this point, all Mabel needs is one more hit on the Raging Bolt and a hit on Great Tusk, and Sneasler can win the game, which is needed. Or the other optional one at this point is winning with Tornadus, but that requires Raging Bolt dying. Either way, you need a hit on Raging Bolt. So Eldritch at this point is going, shit, I'm about to lose to this Delmies, because these two both die, especially if this is Power Whip. This is going to do huge damage to Great Tusk. It won't kill, but again, a Power Whip on Great Tusk means an auto win for Sneasler. Mabel's Synthesis is here, thinking that she never dies because of the light screen. She's probably correct. That only did 39 at +1. Gets another rapid spin. Now you're outspeeding the whole team. And at this point, it's Poltergeist all the way. That hit on Raikou means it's in range of Sneasler, especially after the sub. Another Poltergeist breaks sub, and switches to Great Tusk, predicting the Poltergeist because it has Photosynthesis. Very good play. Very, very good play from Eldritch. Terra Poison stops the Power Whip from happening if you don't kill with his Headlong, but Headlong does kill. Terra Poison also means you resist everything Sneasler has to offer, so getting that off means, yeah, it's pretty clear this is the check to Sneasler. As well, you don't get killed by Bleak Wind. Either way, you're -1 SPDF, you don't have a lot of SPDF to begin with, this is going to come in, and that's game right there. The game is over. Bleak Wind has done enough that everything is in Sneasler range now. Nez and Mabel wins literally off the spot. The only way she doesn't win is if Ogerpon is fast enough and strong enough to Oko Sneasler, it's Adamant Sneasler, so that a potentially max speed Ogerpon can outspeed, and Eldritch somehow gets the terrain down. He would have to do that with Icy Spin or Great Tusk, which is what he should have clicked this turn to kill that Tornadus, but instead it lives. He makes a good switch to Raikou. I don't think this was supposed to live, but it did. And the Thunderclap will take it out. At this point, Nez doesn't care about preserving this. Nez cares about getting Finny in, so it can put Terrain up, and getting Sneasler in. At this point, this has no Draco. So Sneasler lives any 2 from Raging Bolt, and the reason it lives any 2 is because it's going to get plus SPDF from Misty Seed. Which is, and she doubles straight out into it, because if she stays in, I'm assuming, yeah, Draining Kiss doesn't kill this likely because of its Terra Poison. Obviously, Nature's Madness doesn't kill, so if Great Tusk comes in and spinners and gets rid of terrain, Mabel could lose the game in the aforementioned win con that Eldritch has. Ogerpon is strong enough to kill Sneasler, and Sneasler is Adamant, so it doesn't outspeed. So that's why Mabel makes the double to Sneasler. It takes any 2 hits because of the SPDF, and by any 2 hits, I mean Dragon Pulse into Thunderclap. And the hard switch means no matter what, the Misty Seed is proccing, which guarantees the win, which is exactly what happens. Everything is in range of Sneasler at this point. That Bleak Wind hit earlier guaranteed it so. And that'll clean up the game. Very good game. This was a very good game. Eldritch should have had Spinner. It would not have mattered if he had Spinner. If he has Spinner, he kills Torn instead of it staying in. And Nez probably just goes raw Sneasler instead of coming. Either way, the Sneasler sweep was coming. After the first Bleak Wind hit, what's it called? Great Tusk, the game ended. If Mabel missed Bleak Wind, I don't know what happens. Because the only thing stopping Sneasler was a big hit on Great Tusk, which is what happened. Both players knew this, both players played around this, which was very, very good. Yeah, a very fun game to watch when one person has a game plan and follows it, one person knows that game plan, has a countermeasure to it, but it eventually gets forced out because Mabel just had the better advantage throughout the game. It's pretty clear that Delmies was unexpected, but it's pretty clear a lot of what Eldritch brought was also unexpected. It's clear he didn't think about Yarn before bringing it into the Misty Terrain team. It's clear that, well, I guess that's really it in terms of like what the big mispreps were, but it's also obvious he didn't really have anything guaranteed for Delmies. If he's cool, he brings no item Goldengo, or Air Balloon, so it pops and Poltergeist doesn't work. But he didn't really prep hard for the Delmies, and because of that, it helped punch holes, which eventually made it so the Great Tusk had to come out and take a hit, which led to Sneasler winning. This was a very good game to watch. Finally, we got Radacious versus Cable, Terra Necrozma versus Terra Mew. I'll play from Red's perspective because I helped Red with prep. Yeah. Yeah, this is Terra Poison Steel Valley. This is mainly to take hits from Iron Valiant. Talonflame is more defensive, again, for Iron Valiant, because that was Cable's main offensive presence. Outside of that, all Red really had to do was stop the Terra Mew, which could be counteracted with, as long as he had Pokemon left, which should be okay as long as those 2 defensive mons stay intact. That was basically the plan. So yeah, it's lead Grimmsnarl, we're putting screens up. Plain and simple, we're putting screens up. He gets a light screen up to help with the Valiant, but it puts a sub up, and then it brick breaks getting rid of the screen as he goes Talonflame. He clicks Brave Bird to break the sub, obviously. This is very standard so far. This clicks Moonblast for more damage. Yeah, very standard. This can't stay in because Talonflame just revealed it to be faster. And so he roosts, predicting the switch, knowing of this dynamic. Very good from Radacious. U-turn gets free chip. Straight to Rotom Wash, this is standard. Toxic Miss is unfortunate. And then this is a very free Volt Switch for Radacious, or a Toxic, which is exactly what he does as the Blastoise flip turns. Toxic is better than Volt Switch, I think. Getting the Toxic on any Mon, which it's going to be the Sinus Shot, is good. Gets another Toxic on the Sinus Shot, predicting no attack, and if it does, it's really not doing all that much, so it's fine. But getting the Toxic on this is good. This basically means the Sinus Shot cannot sweep outright, which is all he needs the Sinus Shot to not do. Straight to the Grimmsnarl, and all Red has to do is put a screen up and mash Spirit Break. He puts a screen up, and then, because he is Spirit Break Grimmsnarl, this would mean this thing's attack keeps getting lowered, and physical attacks it's not too fond of. It's like just parting shots, that's not bad either. Straight to Talonflame, which again, it's fine. You just don't really want this taking a lot of damage, but it's okay. It's not bad. Also, he should have noticed that it's Terra Water, Terra Blast, which means that this would take a lot. But 1, screen is up, 2, Terra on this means no Terra on Mew, which is very good for the long run. So, I don't know if that was on purpose, I don't remember fully. If going to this to potentially bait Terra Water, so that Mew couldn't Terra later was on purpose, but either way, it was a good thing to do that. Okay, I make the same play as Red here, full justification. I even called this in VC. The play is, this is Toxic, it's probably going to click it on the Rotom switch, go Silvally Poison. It clicks Flip Turn. In comes Doug Trio, Arena Trap Earthquake. Oops. But this is free Rotom Wash. Volt Switch into it, and then you Volt Switch a second time, predicting another switch. I'm also predicting a switch there. I don't see it staying in. Unfortunately, Cable had a set that meant he was never going to switch. He's Sash Endeavor. So yeah. I don't think that's particularly a misplay, because I'm probably clicking the same thing there. I'm not going to lie. But there's just not much you can do with Sash Endeavor. Like, it's impossible to predict. Yeah. Mew comes in. Alright, so now we get an idea of the Mew set. We learn that it is partially physical, at least, with the knockoff. Grimmsnarl comes in afterwards. We're putting them all up. While the Mew is physical, Light Scream is better for the long turn because every other mon is special. So Light Screen is way better for the long turn, especially because we're probably getting knocked off this turn. So getting Light Screen out for the next 7 turns is really good. Straight to Garchomp on the U-turn, gets Ruskin Chip, that's good. This is Hazard Spam Garchomp. It's getting String Sap, whatever. He's just going to put them all up because he shouldn't care if he gets burned, and it's only 20% anyways. And then he goes to Talonflame. It should be Roost, he takes a Terra Blast, and then Brave Bird's next turn. It's better to Roost back up, because you're going to take less from a Terra Blast rather than Recoil and Terra Blast. It's better just to spam Roost until this dies to Toxic, but either way, the Sinistcha is dead, and it's not much of a big difference. You're still around half at the end of the day. This comes in, I thought this was clicking Defog, but it's actually more offensive as from this Thunderbolt. We should know that. The Blastoise comes in. Knowing screens are probably getting put up, which is good because this is Rapid Spin Blastoise. Grimmsnarl dies. In comes the... Okay. This was Red's biggest misplay of the match here. The correct play is to probably just go into Necrozma, click Terra because it's Terra Poison, so it can't get Toxic, and then try and win the game from there. I believe this is either Encore or Destiny Bond's Iron Valiant, so it probably would not have mattered. But either way, killing the Valiant means you win the game with Garchomp most likely. So the play was to just go Necrozma, but instead he goes to Garchomp. And he makes an overpredict. He thinks that Cable's gonna Rapid Spin again to make sure hazards stay down. Instead, Cable just Toxics, recognizing that a bulky chop behind screens is a big threat, and if he's gonna get a move off, Toxic is the best case scenario. And it hits the Necrozma, which is really bad because now this is on the timer versus a relatively bulky team, and he needs time to set up as well. He gets about 70% on the Zapdos, and then gets Hurricane on the Garchomp as well. At this point, the game isn't over, because with that damage on Mew, Talonflame can still win depending on the Mew set, because it's beating Iron Valiant 1v1. But instead, Red just gives up and clicks Brave Bird, which seals the game. Yeah. It was fine, but Redacious's play fell apart at the end, especially with that Necrozma switch. He just, it just went into meltdown mode, and there wasn't much more you could do from there. Because once you've given up on the battle, you're not going to win anyways. But that's a lesson right there, because that Talonflame could have won, depending on the Mew set, if he clicks Roost that turn. Because Knockoff is doing less, he roosts back up, he's resisting everything from Valiant. It could potentially win the whole game. It's a lesson in months. At the end of the day, you've never lost a battle until your last mon dies. That's the theorem of King Gambit, but it applies to every battle. So, keep that in mind your next battle. That's it for week 1. This video went an hour and 45, right? No, hour 15, Jesus. Alright, I can yap about singles forever. I will probably be doing this again for week 2. Hopefully I have the time for it. If I'm as involved in people's prep as I was for week 1, I'll convey as much information as I can. I don't know how I will be. I'm starting school this week, so a lot of time will be lost on my end. But either way, this was fun. I want to do this. I will try to do this again. I will potentially invite more people on, depending on how schedules work out and depending on what we're talking about. But yeah, overall, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you got some value out of this. I hope I wasn't too harsh on the people who misplayed. Yeah, I'll see you all next time.